everybody, welcome back to Mining Modern. I'm Corbin and this is Mardu Eldrazi. So I first visited this deck last year, and I've sort of had it on and off since then, working on it. But I was recently on the Masters of Modern podcast, which you should definitely go check out. I think it's on collected.company, and it's a really great podcast. Love those guys. But they had me on, and we talked about this deck because I had put up a 5-0 finish in a league with it after, having updated the list a little bit. So we're returning to it. A lot of people have been asking about it, so I'm here to deliver as best I can. So this is a really, I think, a very good deck in Modern, to be honest. I think this is one of the more competitive decks I've worked on, and I think that it's got a lot going for it. So here we're breaking down. Essentially, we're a mix between Eldrazi and Bant Eldrazi, and we have advantages and disadvantages to those. Bant Eldrazi gets to play Drowner of Hope and Noble Hierarch and sort of beat down faster, right? And Eldrazi gets to play the Tron pieces, and the white-black Eldrazi decks get to play small and low to the ground and really take advantage of some of that. And what I'm trying to do here is basically take the best of all worlds, because there was red-black Eldrazi that had done well in the hands of a few players at Grand Prix, and I started off with that list, being, it got to do stuff like Wasteland Strangler and all your normal Eldrazi and Kolaghan's Command, and really got, Lightning Bolt and Inquisitions next to each other, and that was a big deal for the deck. Now, I played it, and I thought it was okay, but it had a lot of weaknesses, mainly that it didn't play Eldrazi Displacer, and Eldrazi Displacer is basically the best Eldrazi in the deck. So you can make an argument for Thought Knot or whatever, but Eldrazi Displacer really just holds together a lot of these decks, and I wanted to play it. So that led me to working on Mardu, and it's been a long road to sort of find something we like here, because there's a lot of options when you're in these colors, but this is where I've settled. So we get to play the best removal spells in the format: Fatal Push and Path to Exile. Now, right now I have a 2-2 split because, honestly, I don't know what the right split is. I don't know the right numbers on those, because you also play 4 Lightning Bolts, and I'm not cutting Lightning Bolts because it does everything, including Pressure Planeswalkers, which is something the deck can have trouble with. But Path to Exile is obviously the best removal spell in the format, but it also gives you fodder for your Wasteland Stranglers, which are very good. But then again, Fatal Push doesn't have the drawback of giving him a land. So right now we're on the split. Your mileage may vary. You can probably play around with that one yourself. Then we have 5 discard spells, 4 Inquisition, Thoughtseize, 4 Bolts. And that's the core. That's why you play these colors. Lightning Bolt's the best, probably the best card in Modern. You get to play Path and Fatal Push. You get to play discard, so you have all these openings where it's just, Inquisition away one of your threats, Bolt another one of your threats, and, have some combination of those cards to deal with a third one, and all of a sudden your opponent's hand doesn't do much. Now, we also play Relic Progenitus in the main deck here, which is something we get to do because it's just good in the meta right now. There's a lot of Dredge, there's a lot of Tarmogoyf, there's a lot of Death Shadow and Delving, and it's just generally fine, right? It almost never hurts you. Plus, we get to take advantage of it here with Wasteland Strangler, which is obviously very insane, because when it comes into play, you can process a card by putting something from exile into your opponent's graveyard and giving a creature -3/-3. And you just absolutely crush creature decks with this. Anyone who's trying to play a fair creature game cannot beat this deck ever, and that's the biggest draw to playing it. But working through it some more, we have Hangerback Walker at the 2-drop spot, along with his Mindstone and Talisman. Again, the split here is kind of weird, but I've played a lot of games with this deck, and you need this basically as a concession to the fact you need the mana fixing. Because you just do, right? You're playing essentially a 4-color deck between colorless and Mardu colors. But I found I didn't necessarily need 2 of them, whereas Mindstone gives you some late-game card. It's not an advantage, but, way to turn mana into extra cards later in the game, which is pretty important. And it's nice to have these effects in general because they enable more turn 3 Thought Knot Seers, which, of course, or turn 3 Reality Smashers, right, depending if you have a Temple or not. And it just increases your amount of hands that play ahead of the curve, similar to the way Noble Hierarch does in Bant. So they're pretty important for that reason. Hangerback Walkers are our other 2-drop of choice here. It's really key, in my opinion, because, like I said, we can't lose the creature decks. A lot of people point to Walking Ballista, and I understand why, because Walking Ballista is all over the place right now, right? But trust me, you don't want to do it. You're not losing to the decks that Walking Ballista is good against. Your Vizier decks, you have all those things you wanted on board to ping with. We have a million removal spells and Wasteland Stranglers. We're not losing to those decks. What we need is a card that is good in the grindier matchups against your Jund or your Death Shadow or whatever, right? And that's where Hangerback Walker shines, especially against Grixis Death Shadow, which is the de facto best deck in the format. Having Hangerback on turn 2 and just growing it really causes issues for them over the course of the game. So I would not switch Hangerback out for Ballista. Now maybe there's something else that's better as a 2-drop, I'm not sure, but I've been really happy with Hangerback in the spot. Moving on, obviously Displacer, insane card. Wasteland Strangler, just the games where you are able to path one of their guys and then kill one of the guys with Strangler and then trade Strangler off for another, like, you're just never going to lose those games. You can also blink it with Displacer to really go off later in the game. Thought Not Seer, of course, best Eldrazi. Reality Smasher. Now, we're only running 3 because we're really not a beatdown deck in the way that the Bant Eldrazi deck is, where you just want to power out Reality Smashers as soon as possible. We play more controlling game. Obviously, we have a lot of removal spells and hand disruption spells, and that's what we want to do, right? We want to play the control game. So we don't really just want to power out Smasher. That said, Smasher is an Eldrazi and it's obviously extremely powerful, so we're playing it, but that's why we have 3 instead of 4 there. And then, of course, Kolaghan's Command, tying everything together. This is a huge draw to playing these colors. When you are in this game, you're sort of a grindy-ish game against an opponent, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make you discard a card, and I'm going to pick up my Thought Not Seer from my graveyard, or get back my Reality Smasher. You just 2-for-1 yourself to kill. You know, it's just so good. So Kolaghan's Command is a really nice draw here. The mana base, now, I'm not convinced that the mana base is perfect. I put a lot of work into it, and I'm fairly happy with it, but, you know, there could certainly be room for improvement. So we've got, basically, like I said, we have to balance 4 colors, 3 colors and colorless here. So we obviously are playing the Eldrazi Temples because we need to, right? Then after that, it's some mix of these pain lands like the Sulphurous Springs, the Battlefield Forge, the Cave of Koilos to an extent. Now, it's really important to have Lightning Bolt and or discard spell on turn 1, and that's why you see obviously the full set of Sulphurous Springs, but only 1 Caves. Because, you know, bolts are usually the most important thing to have on turn 1, which is why you see the Battlefield Forge split. Now, it's possible it should be 2 Caves of Koilos and 2 Battlefield Forge. I'm not positive. After that, we have, you know, a suite of fetch lands as much as we can get. We have a couple basics in here, of course, because of Path and Blood Moon or whatever. But we have some Marsh Flats in here because, again, they allow you to fetch out the plains or the swamp, and that's why we have this higher split towards the red on Battlefield Forge, as well as obviously the Sulphur Springs and the 2 Blood Crypts, because the Marsh Flats can fetch you the plains and the swamp most easily. So that's kind of the reasoning behind the mana base here. I was able to fit in 1 Cavernous Souls. This used to be a Seagate Wreckage. Cavernous Souls, I think, is just way better. Seagate Wreckage was sweet, but Cavernous Souls is actually mana fixing as well for the deck when you need it for Displacer or Wasteland Strangler or something. And the final land is 1 Shambling Vent, which I found room for as a white-black, as basically instead of the 4th Marsh Flats, I decided, hey, this mana is actually kind of working good enough, well enough. Let's get something else in there. So we play Shambling Vent, and I'm super happy with Shambling Vent, especially in a deck like this. Very, very important. The life gain, very relevant. I wish I could play more creature lands in the deck. I can't. That's what we got. So moving on to the sideboard here. A lot of what you expect, and again, you can tailor your sideboard to your own personal meta, but 3 Rest in Pieces for graveyard decks, obviously that's a thing we can do. Blessed Alliance, because it's so good in a lot of matchups. You know, you burn, your Boggles, whatever, right? It's just a good card. Thoughtseize for the combo matchups, same with Slaughter Games for the combo matchups. Collective Brutality, obviously best card in the world against Burn. Kill their 1-drop, drain them for 2, make them discard a Burn spell. But also more, just more duresses against, or it's not quite duress, I guess, but more discard against combo decks. Then Anger of Gods for the creature decks, again, just more insurance. Good against Kitchen Finks in a way that some of your other cards aren't, etc. Engineered Explosives, just to catch all. Mainly, sometimes you play this preemptively in case you think you're getting Blood Moon, because that's a real problem. But it's just sort of a catch-all here. The Dreadbore, again, Liliana is the biggest problem for this deck, because I can play it, immediately take it up to 4, and it's great if you have Hangerback. But if you don't have, if they slip one through because your hand was whatever, right, you can't kill it with Lightning Bolt, you have to catch it with discard. And if that doesn't happen, that card is very, very powerful. So the Dreadbore used to be in the main deck, and you could justify putting it back in there over something, right? But for now, rather than cutting, I just moved it to the sideboard in case there's matchups where we want to bring it in. Because, you know, sometimes your opponent's just all beat down. You just play all the removal you can play anyways. After that, Inbringer, great for the grindy matchups. Anytime your opponent's playing a mid-range deck, Inbringer will just win the game if you get on tap with it. So I think it's worth playing here. And the 4th Reality Smasher is here for the combo matchups. We just need to beat them down and kill them, right? In those matchups, we're boarding out our Stranglers and our Kolaghan's Commands and our Hangerbacks. and our fatal pushes and paths, and we're just playing all the hand disruption we can, plus fastest clock we can, and that's where you want the Force Smasher. Again, maybe you don't have to have it. Maybe it could be something else. There's several spots in here that could, in this sideboard, that could be tailored to what you want, but this is what I'm running with for now. So let's go ahead and jump into some games. I really like this deck. As you can tell, I've talked about it a lot here, but let's jump into the queues and see how it goes.